Hey, it's Tom from Tom's Toons. I'm here with a 2007 Sun Tracker Party Barge 21. And as you can see, this boat, it's practically immaculate. You got the shine on the pontoon still. It's just a little wonky. Hold on, before you even look at this, let's look at the front. That boat's sitting flat on the floor right now. As you can see, something's not quite right here. This boat was in a storm, a tree fell on the back end. So let's look at that real quick, see what we're working with. And then I'm gonna tell you what we're doing to this boat, which is actually kind of funny. Its name is Mellow Yellow. It will no longer be Mellow Yellow. Here's the fun part. We're gonna switch this Party Barge 21. We're gonna make it a Party Barge 12. No joke. Come here. This back section of this pontoon, it is trash. There's nothing we can do to salvage this. A tree fell on the back end. It destroyed the deck, destroyed the cross members, destroyed the railings. We're hoping the transom is usable, but that might be twisted and we're gonna have to pitch that too. But the way that we're gonna make this a 12-foot pontoon boat is we're gonna cut right here at this seam, leave the front. It's gonna be 3 sheets of plywood. We're keeping it 8 foot wide. This is gonna be called the Pondtoon. It's a project. This is not something I would normally take on, but brotherly love. This is my brother's boat. He can't help himself. If he thinks he found a good deal, he's jumping all in. So we're gonna tear it down. He's already taken the seats out, what was left of them. We're gonna do the fabricating and piece this thing back together. It's gonna be a really simple boat. He just had a pond put on his property, needs a boat to go and putz around and fish with his 2 boys and his wife. So this is a perfect boat for a little 1-acre pond. Let's just walk around, show you the extent of the damage, and then Corey's gonna tear this thing down tomorrow. But we just brought it inside and had to show you just how bad this is that we're starting with. This is the worst project we've gotten ourselves into in terms of what's going on here. Smashed up ladder. Good as new. You can climb right up that. That'll go. I can't even reuse this back end cap. We're gonna have to either get another end cap or figure out a way to make one. We'll see what happens there. Railings are crushed. This side of the boat is relatively untouched. The motor was actually not terribly impacted, but it got some water damage. It sat under the water for a day or two, just enough to create some problems. So that was garbage. But same thing on this side, we'll cut it right at this weld seam. Typically there's a baffle there and that gives us a little reinforcement. So it should make that new end cap or new, whatever we do for an end cap, nice and sturdy. Whew. What have we gotten ourselves into? The things we do for family. It's actually gonna be a really cool little boat when we're done with it. We just gotta get done with it.
That's the goal. We could put banks and river on this one.
Look at the floor. It's like slopes up and over. I don't know if you can see that in the video. It's like, it slopes.
There will be no water that stays on it.
No. So explain why you're claiming hazard pay on this boat?
I think lifetime of margaritas. That's why.
That seems dangerous.
It's aggressive.
Both pontoons on the ground now. It's Labor Day, so I might as well do one of the worst parts of the labor on this boat, and that's gonna be cutting it at that seam. I'm gonna have to use my angle grinder. It's messy, it's hot, it's uncomfortable, but we'll get it done. I'm gonna cut as much as I can there, and then hoping I can use my circular saw for the other part, because that cuts through a lot easier with my metal cutting blade. I'm gonna cut both these down, kind of tidying up the shop today anyway, so I'll be able to get those both to scrap tomorrow, and then we'll have these tidied up, taking up less space. Let's get to work on them. do me a favor right now, if you're watching this, hit pause, go down and comment, and let me know, raise your hand if you're thinking, I gotta know what's inside of that pontoon. How are they put together? Let's show you right now. But first, go comment, let me know if you're that guy or gal sitting at home just itching to see what these things look like inside. Here's the deal. Pontoons are all built a little bit differently, but the gist of them are pretty much the same. This is a tracker. So what we've got on this boat, on the top side, there are bungs. So there are pressure checking plugs. They're not a drain plug by any means, but there are plugs I can put air into and pressure check. There are no drain plugs in the stern of this pontoon boat. What they do is they make the nose cone its own chamber, this middle section its own chamber, and the back section its own chamber. If you get a leak, it's kind of a pain in the butt. You got to figure out which chamber has water in it, and I promise sometimes it sounds like the nose cone has water in it, but it's this pontoon. It can be a pain in the neck. The way that you have to fix that is you got to drill a hole, drain it out, weld the hole back shut, then pressure check it and fix the actual leak. These are chambered. So this is the stern portion of that this pontoon, wide open all the way to the nose cone. There's another. It's not even a baffle. I mean, it's a baffle in terms of support, but it's a chamber. This is completely welded in and closed off so that if water gets into this chamber, it can't get into this chamber or the nose cone. There are brands that run these baffles, and instead of taking that baffle and sealing it up, some brands will punch a hole in the bottom, good size hole, usually about 1 inch or 2. And what that'll do is allow water to drain eventually all the way to the stern, and those boats typically have a drain plug, but it gives it some sturdiness and it keeps water from sloshing as well when they do that hole in there. On this one, it's chambered. That's what it looks like on the inside. Maybe not as exciting as you thought, but that's how these are built by Tracker. A lot of companies mimic this. They chamber. Bennington does it. They don't do a drain plug, or at least in their old ones, and we're left with chambers. So I do got to see if I could get that baffle out of there. That could be my end cap. Otherwise, we're just going to do a flat piece of aluminum because these are kind of a goofy size, and I don't know if I can get the actual size I need. So let's take a look here. I don't have to order end caps anymore. That one came right out of this. This one, all I'm doing is cutting on the other side of the weld because that cap is welded in as the gusset. So if I cut just on the other side of that weld, I get a beautiful brand new end cap. So amazing find. And then I just had to cut that back, and I wedged a 2x4 in there and punched out the end cap. Wonderful. Doing it again here, it takes about 5 minutes each side. Not a big deal at all. That honestly went as smoothly as I could have hoped for. I now have end caps that I can hopefully just wedge back in here, TIG all the way around. It's a lot better than I thought it was gonna go. So to the scrapyard with these end pieces. I'm gonna get cleaned up and get out of here. It's been a few minutes or months since I have worked on this Pondtoon, these smaller pontoons, got them cut down, and then they got packed away until we had time this winter to get to them, get this boat ready for spring. I've got my baffles and I've got my open cut pontoons. I'm gonna take these, get everything all cleaned up really well first. I'm gonna wipe it down with acetone and then wire brush all of the surfaces I'm gonna weld, which includes all of this dirty aluminum here. But what's noteworthy on this is how thin this aluminum is. It's probably, these end caps are about 100 thousandths. The pontoons themselves are probably a little bit thinner, maybe 080. So we're gonna be welding on some pretty thin stuff. This is a great opportunity to talk about the Yes Welder TIG 200. I was reminded that I did a video not too long ago, well, 6 months ago, about the machine when I first got it. I've used it a whole bunch, including on this boat behind me here. It's being built from scratch, and I'm gonna use it on this project today. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'll show you that as we get to that point. When I finish up the welding, I'll talk through my machine and the settings that worked best for me. I've been super impressed with it. If you're a beginner welder, especially aluminum TIG, Great machine for the money to get you started, but have the capabilities to do a whole lot of stuff. I'm gonna weld these up. It's gonna be a lot of cleaning, a lot of fit up. A lot of times I will have to cut, when I flip it over, cut a seam to allow me to tighten everything up, a whole bunch of tacks all the way around. And then I can go through and work in, 6 to 8 inch increments, depending how much that heat is affecting my area. But what I'm gonna do is get them both going so I can bounce back and forth and not put too much heat into one pontoon at a time. Here we go. So all in all, pretty happy with how the welds are laying in for this old dirty aluminum. And comfort is huge. When you're welding, get comfortable. I'm in a hurry kind of today. I want to get home. We got family over. I got to stop and grab pizza, get back at a decent time. So I was uncomfortable for a lot of these welds. When I would actually lift the pontoon up on my blocks, get postured up, get nice and comfy, gosh, I could see a lot better, and the welding was more consistent and a lot less stressful on me. So I'll come back. I'm gonna fill in. I've just got to go around a couple more times on these, maybe another 20-30 minutes of welding. Then I got to weld brackets on to extend all the way to the back to get the full deck. And then we'll be ready to put the cross members on. That's the railings right there. Transom, I'm gonna pull the fuel tank out of that. We don't need it in there. And we'll bolt that up when we get more cross members in. And like I said, I'm gonna talk more about this machine. I'm hooked up to 220 right now. My plug, got an extension cord. It's a heavy gauge for welding. Actually, Yes Welder sells, I think, a 50 footer. That's something on my wish list. I'm running 115 amps, AC TIG, 1 second pre-flow, 8 second post-flow, 35% for my AC balance, and then 130 hertz. Now, it's working pretty well. I'm getting good cleaning and good penetration running those numbers. So this pedal, it's my only knock on this machine. You gotta have your amperage set pretty close here. 120 was too hot. 110 was a little cold. I was having to wait longer than I wanted to. So 115 was a great meeting in the middle. The foot pedal's just not quite as sensitive. It's a lot like my Harbor Freight machine, but this machine welds way better because of the advanced settings. But it's not quite as sensitive as my Miller foot pedal over there. Again, I love this machine. It's quick and easy to set up. It does great. That's a nitpicking sort of thing there to pick on that foot pedal because it, in all honesty, for the price and what this machine can do, it's awesome. I am on 100% argon, and when I'm pedal down, I'm flowing right around 17 CFH. I think that covers everything for settings and whatnot. That's it. Let's keep working on this. Get this boat looking, well, these pontoons looking more like a boat. I did the old soapy water test, put a couple pounds of pressure in. That mark is the one little pinhole that I had. I already put a little bead on that, so that's sealed up. But I don't know if it was from the impact or the construction, how this is built, whatever. That right there in here is just wide open. It's a really tough one to fix with weld, but I'm gonna do my best here. I should never go under the water unless everyone's on the front of the boat, but we'll see what we can do to close that up. Mostly just gonna be taking the weld from here, the actual filler they put in, and kind of blending it back in there. Probably have to add a little filler, but getting behind here is nearly impossible, and it's filthy. So I'm gonna clean it up the best I can, get that patched up so it's not leaking there either. The 100% way to fix a leak like this would be to cut part of this bracket off or the whole thing, weld a patch on here, and then weld this back down. In this case, it's going on a pond. It's never gonna take a beating or pounding. It's just gonna putz around with a 9.9 horse. This will suffice. I know my brother would give it the thumbs up. And the good news on this one, with the soap test, nothing leaked, no pinholes. Again, I put 2 pounds of pressure in the pontoon. No, pontoons are not designed to be pressurized, even if it says 2 pounds max, and there's a little valve on the back. Don't put air in them. That's just to pressure check them. So a couple pounds, 1 pound. If there's a leak, it starts whistling. So my last thing I gotta do here is I gotta cut. I have 1 bracket that looks like this. I gotta cut that into pieces so that we can position it on the back here to be our last cross member support. And I am really happy with how those brackets on the back turned out. Welded them in, but they definitely needed this gusset. Anytime you're adding brackets, you gotta connect it to another point. I just did it how they did it from the factory. Have to connect it in there, otherwise it's gonna be wobbly and it's probably gonna make that weld crack. The time has come. I've got 2-inch C channel. It's pretty robust stuff. What I gotta do first is square up using the brackets. So I know that these brackets correspond to those brackets. So I'm gonna get this bolted in here. I'll jump up to the front or somewhere up in here and get another one going, and then we'll square it up with those 2 and fill in the rest. I was able to rob some 2-inch C channel off of another boat that I'm gonna end up just parting out the pontoons, maybe weld one into a transom tune or something fun like that. We'll see what happens, but I'm gonna get this put together. I'm gonna get the transom hung and make this look like a little tiny pontoon boat. With the deck on, I'm getting things mocked up. The flooring hopefully will be here tomorrow, but I'm getting my deck trim sized up. I was able to save deck trim from the original boat, at least sections of it that were in good shape, that weren't damaged. This is something that's super common. A lot of you are gonna reuse deck trim because it is expensive to replace, and then a lot of times it's in pretty okay shape. Gotta clean it up a little bit, but it's workable as long as it's not all beat up and scuffed up. But what I have to do in order for this deck trim to fit with these corner caps, see how that's gonna stick out a little bit? I'm gonna blend this. So my line, I went 2.5 inches out and just picked a spot about 3/4 of an inch up. I'm gonna taper that in, and I'll show you what it's gonna look like. I use a circular saw with a really good metal cutting blade, and then I'm hitting it with my sanding disc to smooth it out. That's what it looks like when it's finished, but I'll show you what it looks like with the end cap on here, or corner cap on, in just a second. There's my cut, and that sanding disc just smooths everything out, so nobody's gonna get cut. Even if you run your hand over that, it's nice and smooth. And with the corner cap on, it's now gonna have a nice smooth transition where it eventually just disappears behind that corner cap. We'll show you it when it's all on the boat with the floor and everything. It's a really common practice for me when I'm fitting up factory deck trim with aftermarket corner caps. And yes, an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel will work as well, but you got to keep in mind if you're working with anodized aluminum, it will discolor it just a little bit where it gets heated up. This is not anodized, it's just a nice sort of polished aluminum, so it would be fine to cut this, but you might get discoloration if you're using an angle grinder like this guy with a cutoff wheel. This is looking like a little pontoon boat. I had a little camera malfunction, you know, that kind of happens where I get everything set up and forget to hit record. But we installed the floor just like I do every floor, even though it's only 12 foot, clamped it down the middle, flipped one side back, apply the glue, roll it down, and then repeat on the other side. And then because we're not putting anything up on top yet, after the vinyl was down, rolled out, ready to go, I went ahead and I put the deck trim on, just laid it on top. It's not an F style, it just sits on top in both cases, and then ran my corner caps all the way around. Didn't bother securing the deck trim yet, other than just where our deck bolts or railing bolts go through. So that's gonna hold it all in place, especially once it's all tightened. I did the gray vinyl weave. Gonna be great. It's gonna get some fish slime and whatnot on it, some mud I'm sure from climbing in and out of the boat, but it cleans up super easy and it's gonna look really nice. We'll get a console coming. Just ordered that to go here. Little captain's chair behind it. Otherwise, pretty open floor plan is what they're going for, just mostly fishing. So right there, you just watched me wrap up installing the console, steering, and the bimini, some railing supports for the front and back doors. Let's walk around this and show you what it looks like all finished up. I'm taking this out to my brother's. Pond's frozen, but that's okay. It'll be ready for the spring. He's still got to get a motor on it and everything else. So we're gonna get a look at it, and then I'm gonna get it on the trailer and get it out of here. Our overall length ended up something like 11.5 foot. Remember, these are those matte blue panels. They were a prototype, so they are no longer available. We weren't able to get the right size doors, so we did go with a metallic. He can paint those or just see them, and they match pretty darn well. It'll be interesting when we get out in the sun. Gray woven floor from pontoonstuff.com. The premium console. This is a standard console. Jump up in here in a second and show you that. Let's walk around the back here. There's my next after hours welding project to finish. But we've got the transom. Steering cable is run. I'll throw a zip tie on that just to hold it in place there. That bimini, it's the economy bimini. So it's a strap in front, but it does still stand at a 45. We're gonna leave the canvas off for now, just to keep critters from wanting to get in there. And he can put that on first thing in the spring. Those pontoons. Remember, we welded those end caps back on, and actually I welded a transducer bracket on over on the starboard pontoon, and when I pulled the plug out of that one, air came out, sealed up real nice and tight. There's the console. It's just gonna get a pretty simple fishing seat, but that pedestal will swivel and go up and down as well, and it slides forward and back. There she is. Looks like probably patio chairs for the time being, or some movable fishing seats for the rest of the seating. I see this talked about a lot. We've got it's a pretty crooked bow eye there, bent in. The other one was pretty similar, but couple big whacks on there, straightened her right out. Nothing cracked. It's a little dimpled on each side just from the bend itself. I like that even better. I see a lot of people talk about, oh, you got to heat that up before you bend it. Aluminum doesn't really care if it's heated up or not. It's pretty malleable regardless. I'm not afraid to bang on it because worst case, I might just have to weld something if something were to crack. But in this case, as you can see, my dead blow hammer straightens her right out. Nothing gave, nothing cracked. It's a do it at your own risk sort of thing, no matter what. But that straightened it out. No heat needed. Now we're ready to strap her down to the trailer and go. That happened from somebody over tightening straps. It's aluminum. It's thin aluminum. Be gentle. This is officially a wrap on the Pondtoon. Funny because we're switching from this 12-footer over to a 30-footer next week. Thank you for watching. Remember, the flooring, the console, that sort of thing on this boat is available at PontoonStuff.com. This new deck trim we used here, the plywood, all of it. We've got a coupon code below in the description. Saves you money, helps our channel. It's a win for everybody. Again, thank you for watching. This was a unique one. See you on the next project.